Imagine having to compete against Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos to send humans to space. Now, what if you take the lessons you have learned as a result of that experience and as a result of life in general, and you develop a series of principles to serve as guide to life at home and at work? My guest today, Andy Crocker, did just that. Andy is an aerospace executive with 3 decades of experience building high performance teams and leading ambitious projects, including NASA's Human Landing System. He holds degrees in engineering, humanities, management, and leadership, and is an associate fellow of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. You will learn today about the principles he wrote about in his book, The Unconditionals, and very simple approaches to adopt each principle. Let's listen. Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much for being here with me, Andy, on the show today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm honored to be on.
No, I'm very excited to talk with you because you have such a fascinating career, and I'm curious. I've read the book, The Unconditionals, and it's just provides so much. It's packed with a lot of great insights and historical information, and I was just fascinated. I'm like, whoa, this is like the book of principles that we should be reading. So, but before we get started, I want to know about your career because you're in the aerospace career,
Mhm.
and what drove you to choose that particular field?
Yeah, I've been an aerospace engineer for 30 years, my whole career, and actually, I kind of decided in eighth grade, early on, and late elementary school and early middle school, I knew I liked science and math. I kind of thought engineering made sense, but I did a science project on space stations, and this was before the current U.S. space station went up, and it's been up for over 20 years now. So it was a long time ago. But I did a project on space stations and just really kind of fell in love with the idea and said, yeah, I really want to do that. And even kind of decided I wanted to be an astronaut, although that didn't work out. I did stick with aerospace, and it's been a great career. I've worked with defense companies and commercial space companies, and also quite a bit of work with NASA.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I think, in the book about your the wanting to be an astronaut, and it was primarily it was health related issues that you could you were not able to make it. Basically, you were very close, or I guess, but
Mhm.
was that part the reason why?
Yeah, so I had kind of set that as a goal, but kept working as an aerospace engineer, thinking
Right.
that would still be a good career, but really
Yeah.
wanted to be an astronaut. And I had an opportunity as a sophomore, right after my sophomore year in college. I went to do an internship one summer at NASA Langley, which is in Virginia, Hampton, Virginia. And at the time, this was kind of pre-internet, or before the internet really became prevalent. So at the time, you still use phone books to look things up, and I used the NASA phone book to look up the doctor for the astronauts in Houston at NASA Johnson. And I called the office and eventually got to the right person and said, "Hey, my vision's not that good. Can I still apply to be an astronaut?" And he said no. And at the time, they didn't accept LASIK surgery and some of the
Oh,
surgeries that are pretty common now. So at the time, I was devastated. I really thought, hey, this is what I'm meant to do, and it's not gonna happen. But I was in a good place because I had a good job. I was at working on space, and I was working for a mentor doing trajectories to get to Mars. And it didn't last too long before I said, I really could still enjoy a space career without having to be an astronaut. And I've really enjoyed it.
that's wonderful, and I love the grid that you show there. Like you're gonna go to the source and ask a question in regards
That's
to that.
right. That's right. You might as well find out, and I'm glad I did, because I could have wondered for several years and applied, gone through a lot of effort to apply, only to find out that I wouldn't get it. So at the time, it didn't feel good, but it was probably the right move.
That's fascinating. And what's very fascinating as well that you mentioned is that as you establish your career as an engineer, but also the fact that you were an entrepreneur as well, that you became you had your own company, and that you decided to go to a big I guess contracts specifically. And in one of them in particular that you competed against big companies such as specifically, was it Elon Musk and just
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, that's been one great thing about a career in aerospace is you get to work on typically fun projects that are in Earth orbit or going to the moon or rockets that go to space. And in this case, it was about 10 years ago now that NASA said, hey, we want to go back to the moon. We want to send people back to the moon. It's been way too long. It's time for us to go back. And at the time, they said, we want commercial industry to really take the lead. NASA will be helping and we'll provide guidance and research and so forth, but we want commercial industry to take the lead. And the thing that was kind of nice for industry is that because nobody had done this in 50 years, and when it happened, NASA took the lead. Industry was kind of on a level playing field. Nobody had a big head start. Nobody had gone to the moon with people anytime recently. So where I was working at the time, I went to our management and said, hey, I think we should try this. And we did, and won an early contract along with a number of other companies. And the way that NASA did it, it was sort of an incremental process. And eventually we won and had an opportunity. It was our company against Blue Origin, owned by Jeff Bezos, and SpaceX, owned by Elon Musk. So it kind of felt like we were competing against the two richest people in the world at the time.
Probably were.
Yeah, it was daunting, but it was a fantastic contract, and even though we knew we were at a disadvantage financially, we felt like we were in a really good spot in terms of we had a great technical solution. We felt like we had the best design, and we actually had astronauts on our team, or former astronauts on our team, who were really supportive of our design from an astronaut's perspective. So we really, felt like, hey, this is the thing to do, knowing that, it's an uphill battle, but you still, when you have an opportunity, it's hard to pass something like this up. So we put a great team together and went after it.
Wow. And how did that go in terms of you've talked about your key differentiators there of having the expertise, because you've done it. You have people in your team that've done it and the design, so you're subject matter experts. Now, as a process, I'm curious to know how did that went about, and any particular lesson you have learned during that time.
Well, lots of lessons learned, both positive and negative. And that's, I think, one of the big things that I learned coming out of it is even when you fail, you learn a lot. Sometimes, I know some people say you learn more when you fail, and I certainly think that there's some truth in that. On a positive note, I really felt like we did a great job of putting a team together. And when I go today to those who were on the team at the time, every single person says what a great opportunity it was, what a great project and experience it was for everybody. Ultimately, when we put our proposals in and competed against those two, there were two opportunities, and we were not selected either time. Money was a factor, but of course in those decisions there are many factors. But when you kind of put your heart and soul into a project like that, especially one that has as much potential payoff, sort of a holy grail kind of a project for an aerospace engineer, it really hits hard when you don't win. And for me as the project leader, and for all of us on the team, it takes a while to get over that. But in retrospect, I think I learned a lot of things from it. Certainly. How to be a leader. Some things went really well, and how to handle when things don't go well. How to work with a team to get through that. And then from a personal perspective, I started writing a book just after that. Not at the time it wasn't because of the loss, but it was just something that I decided to start. But as I got into writing the book, I realized that some of the things that I learned from the project, and specifically from working on and losing a project like that, really went into the book, because it really meant a lot to me, and helped me learn really what my values are.
And that's how the book on the Unconditionals came about, correct?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I kind of started it just a couple of months after we had lost that project, with the intention of writing down things for my kids, for my children. My son had just started his senior year in high school, and it sort of hit me, hey, I've got to write things down. I'd always sort of thought about doing that, but had never started the process of really writing down for my kids, hey, here's what's important. And as I got into it, a couple of months, I realized this is more than just a little notebook that I'm going to hand to the kids. It's going to be a little more in depth. And I really decided to put a lot into what I think are the 5 fundamental values that help us, all of us, in all the situations, all the main phases of life, as an individual personally, in relationships, as a parent, and at work, and even as a leader. The values that help us to be fulfilled and to be the best version of ourselves.
Yeah, and those values and principles that you've described in the book. So there's love, gratitude, integrity, accountability, and endeavor. And I want to
Mhm.
go a little bit deeper on each one,
Great.
because you mentioned that those apply to work life and life,
Mhm.
and with everything we do. How about love?
Mhm.
And actually, before that, because you mentioned those are principles and values. How are those unconditional?
That was a really big sort of aha moment for me as I wrote the book. I started in thinking, hey, I really want to write down the values that are important, and I got to a certain point and felt like something's missing. I'm not getting the real point across. And as I thought about unconditional love, which is something almost all of us have heard of, and sort of have an idea what it means, I thought, that really applies to all of these values. If these values are really important, and they really are who we want to be, then it's important for us to live those unconditionally, which means no matter the circumstance, no matter who we come in contact with, what their background is, no matter what situation we're dealing with, positive or negative, we have to live these values. And that was kind of the aha for me, that yeah, I need to live these values unconditionally. And I think that helps us all to become those values, to allow those values to become who we are, if we really strive to live them unconditionally.
Yeah, and let's talk about love, specifically unconditional love.
Mhm.
How do we apply that unconditional love in a work setting?
That's one where, I think initially when we say love at work, people go, ooh, yeah, that's not appropriate. And that's true if we think about it as romantic love, but that's not really what unconditional love is about. Unconditional love is about, well, I broke it down in the book as 3 different things: respect, kindness, and compassion. And those have to apply at work. Just framing it from a leadership perspective, we have to respect everyone we work with, whether they're our colleagues or our competitors. We have to respect the people who work for us and the people we work for. And then we give kindness where, sometimes it may not be deserved, but we still have to give kindness, to present, to put ourselves in the best situation to be trusted, and to earn that trust. And then finally, compassion is important, because it's more than just having sympathy or even empathy. It's more than just, hey, I feel your pain, but I see what you're going through, and I'm going to try to help. And if you're in a leadership position at work, trying to provide that help, try to help your teammates get through struggles, is the kind of compassion that really builds teams and builds cultures, and helps us to perform at our best.
Let's make a quick stop here to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Hardcore Soft Skills LLC. As a team manager, project manager, product manager, or a team member, You and your team need to have the essential skills to deal with conflict, adapt to multiple changes, become a better communicator, enhance your productivity, and increase your emotional intelligence. We offer workshops, coaching, and consulting. Go to hardcoresoftskills.com to get started. Now, back to the episode.
Yeah, and it's evident when they are in any work environment where you don't have those values in terms of the lack of respect or compassion. So very important that we kind of give for granted that how applying that unconditional love in a work setting, as you mentioned. Now, gratitude. I love
Mhm.
gratitude in the sense of how I have learned in the past few years of the importance of being grateful, and how that helps builds us up as well. But what do you refer that in terms of the unconditional gratitude?
The thing about gratitude that I really discovered as I was studying on it and writing the book is that gratitude really is the most direct path to happiness. It allows us to look at what we have and appreciate and be thankful for what we have and not worry about what we don't have. Um, and that's critical and something that a lot of us miss. You know, as you said, it's something that you've learned, and it's certainly something that I've learned. We're kind of programmed in our daily lives to always want more, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to continue to grow and to gain knowledge and even sometimes possessions as a representation of growing, but when that becomes overcomes our gratitude for what we do have, then it becomes a negative. And so unconditional gratitude means we are thankful for what we have, we appreciate what we have, no matter what, and we're in the present, living in the moment. And as a leader, it means we show the people who work with us and for us, show them appreciation. We show that they have value, that whether they're successful in their activities or not, we appreciate their efforts, and that kind of gratitude really creates motivation in a work culture.
Is there a specific practice of gratitude that you would suggest that we should start adopting?
I think personally, it's a habit we should try to gain as something, whether it's you put a reminder on your phone or a sticky note on your mirror or whatever it is, to at least one time a day take time to be thankful for something. Sometimes, people say, I want to be thankful for three things when I go to bed at night, but be thankful for something at least once a day personally. And as a leader, I think that translates to find one person or one teammate that you can express gratitude to every day. It can be really small. Hey, thanks for doing that task yesterday. Or it could be something big if they really were successful in some major task. But every day, try to find somebody at work that you can express gratitude to. And I think that creates that culture of value and then leads to motivation, which helps the team be successful.
I love that. That's a quick thing that we could start applying today at work, and taking that deliberate effort to thank somebody for what they do, which helps them feel appreciated. And as you say, very critical for motivation. Let's talk about the unconditional integrity. There's a lot there that you mentioned in the book. What do you refer by unconditional integrity?
Yeah, integrity does have a lot in it. And that's one that I think everybody knows what it means. And everybody says, hey, that's something that I'm going for or really trying for. But one thing that I learned as I really studied it and wanted to write about it is it's really about wholeness. It's about being whole. And what that means is that what you think and what you say and what you do are all consistent, so that you don't have a different private life than a public life. You're not different at home than you are at work. You're authentic. And that's a word that, a lot of people like to use today, but it's a really good word in that, hey, I'm showing you who I am. I'm being transparent about what I think and say, and hopefully it comes with love, with kindness and respect, but it's not hiding. It's not holding anything back. I'm going to tell you what I know, and I'm going to, be who I am in every situation. So, it's consistency, it's authenticity, and then of course, what we often think about is honesty, trustworthiness, and then fairness, and then loyalty. All of those are important in the workplace, and I think when you really think about integrity as a single idea, it's being whole. It's wholeness of person, so that you're aligned with those values of trustworthiness that you want to build.
Yeah, in integrity, that aspect of authenticity at work, because it refers to being true to ourselves, and it, it is very necessary in workplaces, and I see it sometimes as a also a practice that we need to um, uh, make sure that we incorporate at work, that part of being authentic to us, authentic, and
Mhm.
also bringing uh, the that particular value in is just critical. And I think what do you perceive right now in the workplaces? Is there something that you think there's lack of integrity at multiple workplaces, or is that a specific problem that you believe we have in the workforce of today?
I think it's always a challenge. I think it's a challenge in every situation. It's just a natural human tendency to try to get by, to bend the rules. But I think one modern challenge that we're experiencing that's new is artificial intelligence, and how to deal with artificial intelligence in the workplace. Certainly, it's a great tool, and it's something that all of us want to learn how to use to make ourselves more efficient. But one thing it risks is removing that authenticity. It risks presenting ourselves in a way that's not who we are, and I think that's what we need to where we need to kind of inject that integrity, and say, hey, I can use another tool that helps me be efficient, but I want to make sure that you see who I am. And in some cases, that includes faults, it includes not
Hmm.
getting everything right, but it also includes really showing who I am, so that you can trust that what I'm sharing with you is the true me, and therefore we can communicate as people rather than just computers.
Exactly. But so critical as we move forward in the AI integration in the workforce. Now, accountability, and that was one that resonated with me a lot, because it's just the in a workplace, accountability at times seems to be um, for ourselves. We may not be holding ourselves accountable or others accountable appropriately. What do you mean in the book by unconditional accountability?
Yeah, it really means owning what we've been given, owning whatever our assignments are. So, as a leader, um, it really means the buck stops with us, and that means that whether the team is successful or unsuccessful, we as a leader will own that. And if the team's successful, you share that credit across the team because everybody contributed. If the team falls short, as the leader, you really have to bear that. You have to try to take the blame yourself, and not punish the team for not having met its goals. At the same time, I think accountability as a leader means that you try to teach the team members, teach the people who work for you how to handle accountability. And that means giving them the responsibility for assignment, providing clear expectations of what it is that they have to do, and then letting them go do it, letting them own that job, that task, and yeah, being there for guidance, but trying to stay out of the way, and even remove barriers sometimes when they get in the way. But let them own the task, and then realize that the outcome belongs to them too. But help them learn, hey, if it's a successful outcome, share that credit with everybody who participated, and if it's an unsuccessful outcome, you as the leader can help take on that burden, and then help them to learn the lessons they need to be able to perform better the next time.
Yeah, that's a very critical lesson you mentioned there, and that we have talked about that on the podcast before. When it comes to the role of the leaders, when it comes to a team, that it's not necessarily just guiding them and taking them along the way and giving them the exact roadmap, but
Mhm.
allowing them to trust that to get be accountable and get the work done. And you mentioned something there about the learning, and I guess it's implied that the failure part. How has
Mhm.
that played when you have led teams or working with teams? Because it is difficult for us to embrace that, because failure means, there's cost involved, there's all sorts of things that in a workplace failure may not be seen as an ideal thing. What has been your experience with that in terms of enabling teams to acknowledge failure and learning?
I think there are, in my career in aerospace, there are positive and negative examples of showing accountability and allowing people to fail. A negative example is that if there's an organization, and sometimes NASA is seen as an organization like this, where it's impossible to fail. And I see this as a national agency where, the eyes of the nation and the world are on them. They're afraid to fail, and many times that leads to um, not making decisions, or making decisions that are so focused on safety that nothing gets done, versus making a decision that involves risk, but acknowledging that risk, and then being willing to move forward and live with the consequences. The positive side, there are some commercial companies that are known for taking risk and really leaning into that, and realizing that we're going to fail on occasion, and maybe often up front. But by failing, we learn what we didn't know, or what we didn't know how to do right, and then we go back and try it again. Obviously, you really avoid, if at all possible, failing to hurt people and taking people's lives. But where you can fail and afford to learn from that failure, it can often help you move fast and really be very innovative. And that's one thing that aerospace has learned. So I think in any team setting where you can allow your team to take on that accountability, give them the flexibility to take on risk, and give them the guidelines, tell them where risk isn't allowed, but where it is allowed. If they want to take on risk to potentially learn faster and be more innovative, then sometimes that's a great thing.
Yeah, I like that, of giving guidelines in order to enable that failure and learning, of course, within those particular constraints, to, as in the extreme cases, of course, that you don't want to risk lives along the way when it comes to those learning lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, lastly, endeavor, and that was there was one of my favorite parts of the book when it came to talking about all that's implied, because we think endeavor is just this huge thing that we need to tackle. Like, what does it mean by unconditional endeavor?
That's one that I really feel like kind of brings all of the other unconditional values to life. Without endeavor, we can live a life, but we're really not doing. We're really not striving. And so endeavor is really that arc of striving from purpose, where you develop a vision for what it is that you want to accomplish, all the way through perseverance, overcoming challenges, and eventually what we really want to achieve. The object of any endeavor is to grow, is personal or team growth, and that's really what we're aiming for. So I believe that without endeavor, we can still live a life, and it can even be a good life, but it's not a life that allows us to grow. And it's that endeavor, many times failing, but endeavoring and eventually persevering, that allows us to grow as people, and as many times as teams and as leaders.
Yeah, that's the part of where we take the commitment to go ahead and do the thing, and and also emulate great behavior as trying to lead teams. Now, is there any particular, as you wrote this book and discover all the different principles, that is there any of these that you consider that is underrated, either at work or in our daily lives?
I think if I were to answer it in sort of the general public, I think love is maybe the most underrated. I think people too often allow themselves to slip into, I call it the spectrum of conditional love, but slip down that spectrum towards hate. And sometimes it doesn't feel like hate, but it's a lack of respect and a lack of kindness. So in the general, world, I think that's the one that's most underrated. In the workplace, I think overall people try to be respectful and kind, but what we tend to forget is to be appreciative, to have gratitude. And I think as leaders, but even as people in the workplace, we're so motivated to go after whatever the metrics are, to shoot for the best we can do, and we should, but we forget that there are things that happen that we should be grateful for all the time. And expressing that gratitude within ourselves, for ourselves, and for the things that we encounter, but also for others. To me, that one is the most underrated in the workplace.
Well, I'm grateful to you for being here with me on this show, because you provided a lot of great insights, and you have that great hands-on experience with in a field that's very risky, and that it's every a lot of people's dream to be able to be part of the field you are in. So I want to thank you for your time. And what's the best way for people to go ahead and contact you or find your work?
Thanks for asking. The best way is to go to andycrockerbooks.com. There you can find out a little bit more about me and about the book. And there's a link you can click and find the book in all the formats on all the platforms. So you can get it on an e-reader or hard copy or even audiobook. And you can find it on Amazon, but lots of other places too. So that's the easiest place. But feel free to find me on LinkedIn, just Andy Crocker, or Facebook or Instagram. And feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Andy, so much for your time and sharing your expertise here on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.